Welcome to this week's Fiscal Focus. The topic this week is going to be the concept of a moat. A moat traditionally conjures up images of a ditch surrounding a castle filled with water in order to keep out intruders. This concept got brought up in the live show this weekend, and the kind of moat we were talking about was an economic moat. The moat is simply an analogy. Imagine your business that you've invested in. Its position in the market is defended by a castle. Stored within the castle is your market share. Competitors circle around. They want to scale your walls, they want to batter down your gates, and they want to come in and they want to steal some of your market share. How do you keep these barbarians at bay? Well, a nice wide moat around your castle certainly makes it more difficult for them. One such company that has one of these wide economic moats is the Coca-Cola company. They've been around since 1892. At this point, they have multiple generations of people who consider themselves lifelong Coca-Cola drinkers. Coca-Cola, it has been said in the past, is more recognizable as a name than Jesus himself. That's a pretty amazing amount of brand recognition. Billions of people worldwide recognize the iconic Coca-Cola logo. Now, they have other brands, of course. Diet Coke, which almost stands on its own as almost as high on the mountain as Coca-Cola itself. They have Dasani water, Fanta, Peace Tea, Minute Maid, Schweppes, Sprite, Vitamin Water, Topo Chico. A pretty good portfolio of products. And if you were to come in to say, I want to start a business, and my major idea is that I want to take market share away from Coca-Cola, that would be extremely challenging to do. You're more than likely never going to beat them on brand recognition. They've been in the game too long and grown too large and too recognizable for that at this point. In fact, their brand has such loyalty that when they tried to change the formulation, call it New Coke, even though New Coke won in taste tests, the Coca-Cola loyalists insisted that they bring back the old Coca-Cola, which is why the cans at a certain point started saying Coca-Cola Classic on it, just so that they would know it wasn't that new Coke thing that they came out with. It's difficult to find brands that have a following as dedicated as Coca-Cola. And so, unless your name is Pepsi, it's probably better to try to avoid competing with Coca-Cola. Also, it's worth noting that in the 1980s, Warren Buffett bought Coca-Cola at around a 30 PE and still managed in the decades since to average an 11% annual return on that investment. Companies without moats generally won't give you returns that great on valuations that high. This is one of the reasons why Warren Buffett loves to invest in companies with a moat. Next up, Disney. The Walt Disney Company is the moat of moats in the entertainment business overall. They're in everything from TV to movies to streaming. They have probably one of the strongest histories and one of the most impressive lineups of intellectual property and content. They have the classic Walt Disney animated features, Pixar, Lucasfilm, so Star Wars, think Star Wars, Marvel Studios, think MCU, Endgame, anybody? If you were to try to start a business and say, I want to take market share from Disney. Good luck. Now, the business has suffered a bit recently. Their gross margins have been slow to recover from COVID times. But on the whole, they still trade at a premium to their currently lower earnings. And I think that the market is giving them a lot of credit because of their moat, that they can right the ship and come back out on top financially. Their likelihood of success is probably relatively high. Next up, we have possibly the strongest moat of any moat in the entire market, which is, of course, Apple. Now, it wasn't always the case that people would have considered Apple a moat. I remember there were times where people wondered if they would even be around in a few years. However, certain iconic products definitely turned around that perception. Now, Apple famously offers the iPhone, the iPod, the iPad, MacBooks, Apple Watches, AirPods, etc. They have Apple TV for streaming. They have Apple Pay. And they have this whole Apple ecosystem concept that really drives up revenue per user. They have amazing return on invested capital. And they have an almost unassailable share of the cell phone market. Apple has 57% of the market share in cell phones. Samsung, Motorola, and Google, who is often considered a moat in their own right, together have been unable to take even half of the market share compared to Apple's 57%. If that's not a moat, I don't know what is. And it's no wonder why Warren Buffett really, really likes Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that helps you understand what constitutes an economic moat. Ryan and I usually concur when discussing different businesses what actually qualifies as a moat and what doesn't. These three companies are, in my view, three of the more obvious moats out there. Now, tobacco is often considered a wide moat as well, simply because it would be pretty challenging to create a new tobacco company, and I don't think anyone is really motivated to when in the West smoking is sort of frowned upon, on the decline. A lot of people have moral issues with the business. Railroads like Union Pacific are sometimes considered a moat, and that's understandable. There's monopolistic features there, which can definitely lead you to say, hey, that monopoly, I mean, who's building a new railroad, right? That could be a moat as well. But by and large, I think it's better to use examples that are a little bit more on the nose and obvious, where there is competition still, okay? Certainly there is competition in mobile phones, yet Apple is still dominant because of their moat. It's hard to take market share from them. Coca-Cola, there is competition in beverage, right? But still, they maintain a very high market share and a lot of brand loyalty. They have a moat. I hope that you've found this informative and helpful for when we discuss moat on the channel. This is what we mean. Have a good day, everybody, and remember, cash flow is king.